Hello, welcome back to part 2 of this video where we are ranking F5 tornadoes and determining which ones are superior. If you'll recall, I am ranking these tornadoes based on the aerial coverage, that is length times width, and the property damage that they cause in modern day dollars. And I am ranking these on a tier maker, which is going to be from S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier. And the tornadoes that I put in S tier in the last video are Topeka, Kansas from June 8th, 1966, and Lubbock, Texas from May 11th, 1970. Part 2 of this video is going to cover tornadoes from 1974 to 2013. And so this part will include both super outbreaks from 1974 and from 2011. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll get started. And we're going to get started right in the super outbreak from April 3rd, 1974, and the first tornado is going to be Daisy Hill, Indiana. And this tornado was difficult to determine the ranking, but ultimately this tornado is going in B tier. And so the difficult part is there is a lot of discrepancy on just how big this tornado was. And so there's pretty good consensus that this tornado tracked 68 miles across southern Indiana. Where the discrepancy comes from is the maximum width of this tornado. So the official storm survey from the Storm Prediction Center puts this tornado at a maximum width of 10 yards, which is probably incorrect. There are also some storm surveys that put this tornado up to almost a mile wide. And there are some other storm surveys that are sort of a middle ground in between those two extremes. And so that's what I'm going with. I'm going with the middle ground on this tornado, and it had a maximum width of 0.4 of a mile. And so the aerial coverage from this tornado is 27.2 square miles, which puts this tornado in B tier. And so next we have Xenia, Ohio from this same event. And the aerial coverage from this tornado was 9.39 square miles, and it had a maximum width of 0.3 of a mile, and it tracked 31 miles across western Ohio. But this tornado was a far more damaging tornado than the Daisy Hill, Indiana tornado, and so this tornado is going in S tier. The property damage estimate from this tornado was $1.5 billion. And this tornado was so damaging that it was originally rated at an F6 tornado. Ted Fujita later downgraded that to an F5 due to determining that the F6 category was inconceivable, and so it doesn't actually happen in the real world. And so next we have Brandenburg, Kentucky, and this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 8.4 square miles with a maximum width of 1/4 of a mile, and it tracked 33 miles across northern Kentucky. And the damage estimate from this tornado is about $15 million. Next we have Sailor Park, Ohio, and this tornado is going in C tier as well. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 6.24 square miles with a maximum width of 0.3 of a mile, but it only tracked about 20 miles across Ohio. And the damage estimate from this tornado is also $15 million. And next we have the next 3 tornadoes from this outbreak are going to be from Alabama. And so the first tornado we have from Alabama's portion of the outbreak is Mount Hope, Alabama, and this tornado is going in C tier. This tornado, the aerial coverage from it is 14.56 square miles with a maximum width of 0.28 miles, and it tracked 52 miles across northern Alabama. And next we have Tanner, Alabama, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 23 square miles with a maximum width of just over 1/4 of a mile, and the length from this tornado is 83 miles. And then next we have Guin, Alabama, and this tornado is also going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 28.52 square miles with a maximum width of, again, over 1/4 of a mile. This tornado was the longest tracked tornado of the event, and it tracked up to 100 miles across Alabama. And with the tornadoes in Alabama, I unfortunately don't have a damage estimate from them. And so these tornadoes aren't ranked quite as high. If I had a damage estimate, from these tornadoes, they would probably be ranked a little bit higher. But that is going to cover all the tornadoes from 1974. And so next we're going to go to March 26, 1976 in Spiro, Oklahoma. And this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is almost three square miles, with a maximum width of a quarter of a mile, and this tornado tracked up to 12 miles across eastern Oklahoma. And the damage estimate from this tornado is $13 million. And next we have Brownwood, Texas from April 19th, 1976. And this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage is 2.63 square miles, and it tracked just over 10 miles with a maximum width of a quarter of a mile, and the damage estimate is $13 million from this tornado. Next, we have Jordan, Iowa from June 13th, 1976, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 10.65 square miles with a maximum width of half a mile, and it tracked 21 miles across Iowa. And this tornado was a little bit more damaging, which caused about $132 million in property damage. And next we have Birmingham, Alabama from April 4th, 1977, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage is smaller with this tornado, which is 4.5 square miles with a maximum width of about 0.3 of a mile, and it tracked 14 miles across central Alabama. And the damage from this tornado is estimated to be about $125 million. And then next we have Broken Bow, Oklahoma from April 2nd, 1982, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage here is 15 square miles with a maximum width of just over a quarter of a mile with a path length of 53 miles. And the damage from this tornado is estimated to be about $7 million. And then next we have Barneveld, Wisconsin from June 7th, 1984, and this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 9.35 square miles with a maximum width of a quarter of a mile, and it traveled 37 miles across Wisconsin. And this tornado caused an estimated amount of $72 million in damage. And then next we have Niles, Ohio from May 31st, 1985, and this tornado is going in A tier. This tornado occurred in an outbreak that spanned from southeastern Canada down into northwestern Ohio and western Pennsylvania. So it's kind of in an unusual spot. And this is the only F5 tornado to occur in northeast Ohio that tracked into Pennsylvania. So this is a pretty unusual tornado. And the aerial coverage from this tornado was about 11 square miles with a maximum width of a quarter of a mile, and tracked 47 miles across Ohio and eventually into Pennsylvania. And the damage estimate from this tornado is over $700 million, which puts this tornado in A tier. And then next we have Heston, Kansas from March 13th, 1990, and this tornado is also going in A tier. This is a pretty large tornado, which had the aerial coverage of 36 square miles and had a maximum width of 3/4 of a mile and a maximum length of 48 miles, which puts this tornado in A tier. And then next, from the same event, we have Gosel, Kansas from March 13th, 1990, and this tornado is going in B tier. It had an aerial coverage of 17 square miles with a maximum width of a quarter of a mile, and it tracked 23 miles across Kansas. And then next, that brings us to Plainfield, Illinois from August 28th, 1990, and this tornado is going in A tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was only 5.5 square miles with a maximum width of about 1/3 of a mile, and it traveled 16 miles across Illinois. But it was a very damaging tornado, and the damage estimate from this tornado was about $500 million. which puts this tornado in A tier. And then next we have Andover, Kansas from April 26, 1991, and this tornado is also going in A tier due to the damage that it caused. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 18 square miles with a maximum width of 0.4 of a mile, and the traveled 46 miles across Kansas. The damage estimate from this tornado is $600 million. So a very expensive tornado. And next, that is going to bring us to Chandler, Minnesota from June 10th, 1992. And this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was pretty small, about 2.5 square miles, with a maximum width of over 1/10 of a mile, and it only traveled 16 miles across Minnesota. This tornado was very damaging, which caused about $107 million in damage. And next we have Oakfield, Wisconsin from July 18th, 1996, and this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage in this tornado is about 3 square miles with a maximum width of about 1/4 of a mile, and it tracked only 13 miles across Wisconsin. And so that puts this tornado in C tier with a damage estimate of $75 million. And then next we have Gerald, Texas from May 27th, 1997, and this tornado is going in C tier. It was a pretty small tornado with only an aerial coverage of 2.7 square miles and with a maximum width of just over 1/3 of a mile, but only tracked about 7 miles across Texas. And this tornado only caused about $75 million in damage. And so next we have Oak Grove, Alabama from April 8th, 1998, and this tornado is going in B tier. And the aerial coverage from this tornado is a little bit larger with about 22 square miles, and this tornado tracked 30 miles across central Alabama with a maximum width of 3/4 of a mile. And this tornado was very damaging and caused over $300 million in damage in central Alabama. And then shortly after this tornado, we had another F5 tornado in Waynesboro, Tennessee from April 16th, 1998. And this tornado is going in B tier as well. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 19 square miles and with a maximum width of about a mile wide. And so this tornado tracked about 19 miles across southern Tennessee, and it only caused about $7 million in damage. And next, that is going to bring us to Bridge Creek, Oklahoma from May 3rd, 1999. And this tornado is going in S tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 30 square miles with a maximum width of 0.8 of a mile, and it tracked 37 miles across central Oklahoma. And this tornado is extremely damaging and caused $1.6 billion in damage, which puts this tornado in S tier, and it's one of the more well-known F5 tornadoes in the United States. And so next we have Greensburg, Kansas from May 4th, 2007, and this is the first tornado, I believe, using the enhanced Fujita scale. So this is the first EF5 that we've had. And this tornado is going in S tier. And this tornado is going in S tier due to the size of this tornado. This was an extremely large tornado. And it had an aerial coverage of 48, almost 49 square miles with a maximum width of 1.7 miles. And it tracked 28 miles across southwest Kansas. And this tornado caused about $360 million in damage. Next, that is going to bring us to Parkersburg, Iowa from May 25th, 2008. And this tornado is also going in S tier due to the size of this tornado. This is an extremely large tornado, which had an aerial coverage of 48 square miles with a maximum width of about 1.2 miles and traveled 41 miles across Iowa. And the damage that it caused was estimated to be about $480 million. And so next we are going to cover the super outbreak of April 27th, 2011. This outbreak produced two EF5s in Mississippi and 2 EF5s in Alabama. And so the first tornado of the day is going to be Smithville, Mississippi, and this tornado is going in B tier. And next, that is going to bring us to Hackleburg, Alabama from April 27th, and this tornado is going in S tier. This was the largest tornado on this list with a maximum width of 1.25 miles, and it traveled 132 miles across Alabama, which makes this tornado to have an aerial coverage of 165 square miles, which is an extremely, extremely large tornado, and it had a damage estimate of over $1 billion in damage. And so that puts this tornado in S tier. And next we have Preston, Mississippi from April 27th, and this tornado is going in C tier. This tornado had an aerial coverage of 14.4 square miles with a maximum width of about a half mile wide, and the length was 28 miles across Mississippi. And this tornado is estimated to cause about $1 million in damage. And then next we have Rainsville, Alabama, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 27 square miles with a maximum width of 3/4 of a mile, and it traveled 37 miles across northeast Alabama. And the damage estimate from this tornado is less than $1 million. And then next we have Joplin, Missouri from May 22nd, 2011. And this tornado is going in S tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is about 19 square miles with a maximum width of 9/10 of a mile, and this tornado tracked 21 miles across southwest Missouri. And the damage estimate from this tornado is over $3 billion in damage, which makes this the costliest tornado in U.S. history. And then next we have Piedmont, Oklahoma from May 24th, 2011. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And this tornado is going in S tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 64.9 square miles with a maximum width of a mile wide, and this tornado tracked 64 miles across Oklahoma, which puts this tornado in S tier. And then very last tornado on this list is Moore, Oklahoma from May 20th, 2013, and this tornado is going in S tier as well. This tornado tracked 13 miles across Oklahoma with a maximum width of about a mile wide. And so the damage from this tornado is about $2 billion in damage. $2 billion in damage. Sorry. That concludes this list of F5 tornadoes in the United States from 1953 until 2013. There were 59 of them in total, and I found 10 of them to be superior, either based on the size or the damage that they caused. And those tornadoes are Topeka, Kansas from June 8th, 1966, Lubbock, Texas, May 11th, 1970, Xenia, Ohio from April 3rd, 1974, Bridge Creek, Ohio from May 3rd, 1999, Greensburg, Kansas from May 4th, 2007, Parkersburg, Ohio, May 25th, 2008, Hackleburg, Alabama from April 27th, 2011, Joplin, Missouri from May 22nd, 2011, Piedmont, Oklahoma from May 24th, 2011, and Moore, Oklahoma from May 20th, 2013. Thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to the next video.